When Samsung unveiled the Note 9 a year ago, I was surprised by how much I liked it. Sure, it didn't pack too many fresh new features, mostly just refinements on what the Note line already got right. There was more power than before, better battery life, a larger display, and increased onboard storage. Plus, some camera improvements made the Note 9 more capable in low light. These upgrades are pretty much a given with any new smartphone though. Samsung also added Bluetooth to the Note's hallmark stylus, turning the S Pen into a remote control. It might have seemed like a minor tweak at first, but once I saw the benefits that brought for selfie shooting and music playback, I was sold. A solid phone with a novel way to use a well-established accessory? Who could argue with that? In hindsight, I might have been a little blinded by what was new and shiny though. And things that didn't seem like a problem at launch became more important a year later. For example, the Note 9 shipped with the then already outdated Android Oreo. Pie finally started rolling out to the Note earlier this year, but now Android Q is right around the corner. And who knows how long it'll be before it comes to the Note 9. And honestly, I still just don't love Samsung's UI. I've been spoiled by the clean and pristine version of Android on the Pixel. There are still things that I like about the Note 9 though. When I was first introduced to the S Pen's new Bluetooth-enabled features, it seemed like a stroke of genius. Shoot group selfies from a distance, pause your music with a click. It seemed like if more developers came on board and coded their apps to take advantage of the trigger, the pen's remote controls would become much more useful. It might also make the Note more appealing to a mainstream audience beyond just the artist or power user that typically buys it. But as we all have to learn in life, just because something has the potential to do well doesn't mean it will. Since its launch last August, the S Pen hasn't gained many remote control abilities at all. I still think the addition of Bluetooth made sense, but 1 year later, it seems much less important. Sure, I like the new features, but I wasn't lost without them. There was a brief period where I definitely missed having the option to take a selfie from further away, but setting a timer on any other smartphone is a fine substitute. The stylus really only makes it easier to take multiple shots from afar and change cameras. Once the novelty wore off, I didn't use the S Pen very much, other than to occasionally navigate the Note 9's large display, scribble some notes, or mark up some documents. The number of times I did were ultimately too few to convince me to stay with such a big phone. Honestly, my Pixel 3 feels like a good size. The only times I really wanted that bigger screen was when I was reading documents, scrambling to write a script on the train, or playing games that required precise tapping. But even if I needed a more spacious panel, I could opt for the Pixel 3 XL instead of the Note 9 and not feel like I was missing much. Another thing that became increasingly clear, the Note 9's cameras are kinda meh. In a world where the Pixel 3 and the Huawei P30 Pro exist, the Note 9's camera is merely decent. We ran a face-off between the iPhone XS Max, Pixel 3 XL, Huawei Mate 20 Pro, and the Note 9, and Samsung's device ranked near the bottom. If you had bought the Note 9 purely for its cameras, you would have been disappointed about 2 months later when Google launched the Pixel 3, which still takes some of the best pictures I've seen from its smartphone. Samsung also fails to measure up to Google on digital assistants. As I said when I first reviewed the Note 9, Bixby is whack. And the poor thing still feels like the slow younger brother to Google's Assistant. Samsung has rolled out a few Bixby updates, but I'm at a point where I'm so doubtful of its ability to do anything right that I hesitate to use it at all. Even if Samsung has managed to tweak Bixby so that it's better at basic tasks like typing the right words to send to the right person, Google is so far ahead of the competition that I find myself longing for the assistant. Sure, it takes time to build up faith in a digital helper, but Bixby may just have burned me one time too many. The good news is, I can ignore Bixby and still enjoy the Note 9 as a phone. There's nothing inherently bad about the Note 9. It's still a speedy, long-lasting beast of a smartphone that power users and digital artists will get a lot out of. But the things that stood out to me at the beginning, like the S Pen's remote controls, didn't end up being features that I kept going back to use or missed on another phone. If you aren't as impressed by a big screen and a nifty stylus, the Note 9 might feel like a letdown after a year. And if that's the case, the Note 10 probably isn't going to change your mind. Samsung generally gets the basics right, so you'll always have a fundamentally good phone. But as we've learned, the fun new features it introduces have often turned out to be distractions and not life-changing in the long run. You'll have to really be an established Note fan who's here for the S Pen and not simply drawn to gimmicks to keep sticking with the line.